All right. Hi, students. Welcome back. I've got another virtual speaker here. Today, we are honored to have an extremely multi-talented guest who makes waves in both the academic and entertainment realms. I have Hannah Chaddha with me, a force to be reckoned with as she has an impressive academic background. She's got a bachelor's degree in biological sciences, a minor in Spanish, a master's degree in biomedical ethics. Hannah's journey is such a testament to her dedication to learning and growing every day. And she has agreed to join us to answer your questions. So students, get ready to do a deep dive into the mind of a true scholar and star. Let me welcome my guest, Ms. Hannah Chaddha.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Mr. Harris, for the warm and the welcoming intro. I'm very happy to be here. So ask away. Hopefully I can help someone.
Absolutely. Okay, so before I dive into my student questions, I did want to ask, what was your high school experience like?
That's a great question. My high school experience, I'm so sorry. I was alone in this hallway and then two people decided to, hopefully you can't hear much background noise. But Mr. Harris, your question was about my, okay, awesome. So Mr. Harris, your question was about my high school experience. My high school, okay. Okay, they finally finished their conversation. Okay. So Mr. Harris, your question was about my high school experience. It was definitely unconventional in the sense that I went to a boarding school, and not many people do, at least in America. And for those of you who don't know what a boarding school is, it's residential. So you attend classes there. You also live there. So your classmates are your roommates. Your ability to go home kind of depends on like your specific school's policy. I was able to go home every weekend if I chose to go home every weekend because my boarding school was so close to where my parents live. But some students would stay there the entire semester and only go home for like summer and winter break. So that, let's see, I graduated from high school 8 years ago. I don't remember too much about the experience, but it was a math and science school. And I opted to go there because I knew I was interested in math and or science, particularly science. I didn't know if I wanted to go into research. I didn't know if I wanted to go into education. I didn't know if I wanted to go into medicine, but I knew I wanted to do one of those three realms. And so I figured, let me just give myself as much exposure to research and to medicine, science, math, etc. as I can. And that way I can have a better idea of what it is that I want to do going into college. So that's why I chose to go there. Yeah, that's pretty much what I remember about it because it was so long ago.
That is so cool. Wow. I did not know this. That's so cool. I have a billion questions that popped into my head. However, I am not going to ask them because I do want to ask my students questions and they asked a bunch. So I'm going to dive a bit into those. Okay. So the first question that I had was actually, that's not the first one I'm going to use. The first question that I have is, or not that I have, but one of my students had was, how was the MCAT? Because I've told my students about like the MCAT and how that's a test that you have to take in order to get into medical school. But can you tell us about that experience and like how that was for you?
Yes, the MCAT. Huh. Such a daunting experience. Also, Mr. Harris, what grade level do you teach?
I teach ninth graders.
Okay, so they still have quite a ways to go before medical school, but that's awesome that they even know what the MCAT is. I certainly did not even find out that there was a test you had to take to get into medical school until I was maybe like a freshman in college. So they're 4 steps ahead of I ever was. But with the MCAT, I took multiple gap years. I was only supposed to take 2 gap years to pursue my master's degree in biomedical ethics. It ended up being 3 gap years because of Big Brother. I had to take a year off. But I was lucky in the sense that I didn't have to worry about studying for the MCAT while I was in undergrad. I don't know what that study regimen looks like, just because you have to worry about your extracurriculars and classes and exams and the MCAT on top of that. That just seems nearly impossible. Kudos to people who are able to do that. But for me, I was able to carve out maybe like 8 hours a day where actually let me give you the real tea because that semester, that was like January to June of 2021. That is probably the busiest I have been in my whole entire life up until getting to medical school last summer because I carved out, like I mentioned, about 8 hours of studying time for the MCAT per day. I did end up enrolling in a prep course. And if you're able to, I would highly recommend just because they know how to keep you regimented. They know like what you should do, what you shouldn't do, just based on data and what's worked for students in the past. They have all these resources that you can access, all these practice exams. I would highly suggest taking one of those prep courses through like Kaplan or the Princeton Review if you can. Of course, you can still do well on the MCAT studying by yourself. That's just like a tangential note. But I would study for the MCAT in the morning, and then at night I would take my graduate school classes. Those would be like 3 hours a night. Of course, I would have to study for my grad school classes. I would have to do independent studying for my MCAT prep course. I was also interning at the hospital's clinical ethics consult as part of like my practicum experience for my master's program. I was working as a hostess at a restaurant just to make some like extra money since I was freshly out of college. I was doing something else too. I think I had another internship. Oh yeah, I was working as the graduate assistant for Loyola Marymount University, which is where I pursued my master's degree. And I was going through the Big Brother casting process all at the same time. And because I had not been introduced to Big Brother until January of 2021, I did not sleep for months because I would start my day at 8. I would end my day at maybe like 2 a.m. And then from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., I would religiously watch Big Brother, just studying. And this was even before I knew that I was going to apply. Like I don't know. I'm a student of the game. I'm a student of life. So I would just like take mental notes on Big Brother as I was watching. And then eventually I ended up applying and going through the casting process. But all of that was happening at the same time. Don't do what I did. It was very stressful. I didn't have any mean time whatsoever. Yeah. I was not the best about taking care of myself. But yeah, that's how studying for the MCAT went for me.
I have so many questions. Wow. Okay, so I guess my biggest question that I feel like is very valuable for my students to know is, what were your study methods? How did you go about studying?
For the MCAT, right? Or just in general?
You said that you were studying like crazy, like throughout that period. So, and like, how did you go about like all of the different things that you had to study and like getting all that information locked in your brain?
100%. So the MCAT, it is, at least when I took it, I don't know if they've since changed the structure, but it's 4 broad sections. There's Chem Phys, so chemistry, physics. There's biology / biochemistry. There's psychology, and then there's CARS, which is the reading assessment or reading comprehension, I should say. And so since I was at that point about a year out of undergrad and I hadn't touched science, I hadn't looked at science in a year, I definitely felt like I had to brush up on my content review. And I'm going to sound like just a walking billboard, but when I signed up for the Kaplan prep course, they gave me just a ton of like content review books. So each day, they would have like classes throughout the day, but I would go to that class in like a specific area of content review and then kind of brush up outside of class if I felt like I needed the extra attention or the extra help in that area. But the way that the course is paced, it's super nice because they're like, okay, on this day, we're doing glycolysis. On this day, we're doing Newton's laws. On this day, we're doing fundamental attribution error, or like on this day we're doing mood disorders. So it really does hold you accountable. And like I said, if I felt like I needed extra guidance outside of that, then that was kind of on me to brush up on those topics using the content
Yeah.
review books. And then once we got past like, it was a 6 week prep course, or sorry, 8 weeks. Once we got past maybe like week 2, we started doing full length practice exams just so you could kind of gauge your progress. So on the first practice exam, I did not even come close to the score that I wanted. But then, you know, as you do content review, as you do practice questions in class, then you kind of learn it's not so much about the content. It's more so about like getting into the head of the test makers. It 100% is like a strategy game. Like, yeah, you can't go into the test not knowing anything about
Right, of
science,
course, of
reading
course.
comprehension, etc. But like there are strategies you can do to still get the answer right without necessarily having to know that particular concept like the
Yes.
back of your hand.
Right.
So that is how I was able to improve that score. It was kind of honing in on those strategies that they give you and like buzzwords to look out for, red flags, red herrings to look out for. And then it was cool to see as it was neat to see how my score would keep increasing on those practice exams weekly or bi-weekly. And then I ended up taking my MCAT June 18th of 2021, and I left for the Big Brother house early in the morning on June 28th. So I did not know how I did on the MCAT until I walked out of the house and I called my dad. And the first thing he said to me was, Hannah, beta, so good, so proud of you, but also, do you want to know how you did on the MCAT? And I was like, do I want to know how I did on the MCAT? It's been stressing me out all summer. And he was like, you got the score you wanted. And I was like, oh, okay, I can breathe. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully that helps.
Wow. So then, what was your approach to like studying for your like graduate school classes?
My program, it was theory-based or philosophy-based. So it was just a lot of reading, a lot of writing reflections, a lot of just making sure that you were prepared to comment on something, on a paper, on a journal that we were reading at the time, on a book. And you were coming from like an informed stance and not just kind of like stating your opinion, because we were there to be scholars. We weren't just there to like be individuals and offer our unsolicited opinions if we didn't actually know what we were talking about. So it was a lot of just reading and writing. Yeah.
So let me jump back to my students' questions. I am just super fascinated with everything that you're saying, and I want to just ask my own stuff, but I want to also make sure that I am. They did put time into asking these questions, so I do want to make sure that I'm hitting those, even though your story is so fascinating.
Thank you.
So, one student wants to know, what were some difficulties that you have faced in your medical school career? Have you actually? Sorry, before I ask that question, I do have to know: have you done a lot of field work yet?
Yes and no. So I haven't started my rotations yet. That'll be in less than a year from now, because Georgetown has a condensed preclinical curriculum. So most schools do 2 years of just being in the classroom, 2 years of rotations. Georgetown does 18 months of being in the classroom. That way you can have 2.5 years on rotations at the hospital, at the clinic, seeing things, working with patients directly. So yeah, that's coming up sooner rather than later. I'm about, 10 months into medical school right now, and I have about 10 months before I start rotation. So halfway done.
Wow.
But we do have this thing called ambulatory care, which is shadowing a physician in an outpatient setting. So I am in an internal medical office, or just like an internist's office, and we get to see such a wide variety of patients and problems, and it's really taught me a lot. And I think the coolest thing is when you see something that you learn in the classroom, so it just reinforces that. And like sometimes I'll see something and then the doctor will be like, oh, well, what did you think about this? And I'll be like, oh, we actually just learned about that. What if, blah, 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 blah. So that's something that I do. And then I also am one of the directors of Georgetown's student-run clinic. So with that, we get to see patients every week. It's completely free for uninsured, underinsured patients. A lot of our patients are currently experiencing homelessness, so they don't have access to healthcare otherwise. And not only do we see them and do we treat them, but we also refer them to like a more longitudinal form of care. So we get them connected with primary care physicians. I also lead our health fairs where we see like hundreds of patients at once, and we get to provide all this health education. So there's definitely like an opportunity to kind of do everything. I'm also a Spanish translator, like a clinical Spanish translator. So I see patients that way. Let's see, what else do I do? I feel like there's more. Oh, I also shadow an anesthesiologist because that's what I'm interested in. So,
really? That was another question. They were wondering what you planned. Well, I think the actual question, because I don't think that we knew how to phrase it properly, but it was just kind of what did you want to become in the medical field? I actually think the actual question was what doctor are you going to be? What kind of doctor are you going to be? But you want to do anesthesiology or be an anesthesiologist and do anesthesiology?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no. You're right. It's a very long word, so I don't blame you at all. Even with me, I still get like tongue-tied, but I'm also interested in child and adolescent psychiatry. Very, very different, but those are like the two fields that I'm looking at. And in terms of psychiatry, I am the president of like the psychiatry interest group at my school.
I can't. You're awesome.
I don't sleep. Don't do what I do. Get some sleep. Yeah, I could definitely be better about that. But I also like to say you can't be productive when you're asleep. So sleep is for the weak. But we actually just did an event earlier this week where we collaborated with the Street Medicine Outreach Organization, which provides supplies and care to people experiencing homelessness in the DC area. And then we also collaborated with Correctional Health Outreach that provides services, resources, and care to incarcerated populations. And we did like a documentary screening and discussion on the intersection of mental health, homelessness, incarceration. So that's something else that I'm interested in, honestly, is like healthcare to like providing healthcare to marginalized populations. It's just a matter of integrating everything that I'm interested in doing.
Wow. Just wow. Okay, so I do want to go back to my student's question that I originally was trying to ask before before I get too far away from it, I don't want to forget it. What are some difficulties that you face when you are working with all of these different people and groups?
Yeah. I think the most frustrating thing is probably just acknowledging how the health system has failed them time and time again. And the product of that is they just don't have that much trust in you. And I don't mean like me specifically, Hannah Chaddha. Right. They don't know me. Right. I don't know them. But physicians, nurses, other healthcare providers. And it's just really sad to see because at the root of our profession, we're supposed to help people, care for them, make their lives as comfortable and easy as possible, cure them if we can, if there is a cure or treatment for a condition that they may have. But the healthcare system also just poses so many unnecessary and systemic barriers to marginalized and vulnerable populations. And so it's understandable that they may be a little hesitant to receive care. Maybe they feel like they have to be on the defense. And that's just entirely the result of us failing them in the past and failing the generation that came before them and the generation that came before them and their ancestors. It kind of goes back to generational trauma and slavery and incarceration. Yeah. But all of these systems really work together to help certain populations and further oppress others. So that can just be really saddening for them. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So another question, which I don't even know if I should ask this, but one of my students wants to know, how do you find balance between work, school, life? Next question.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, what's so interesting is I do feel like I have found that balance. And that sounds crazy to say because I really do, like, I'm pretty involved here. And that's allowed me the opportunity to meet so many of my classmates and hear their amazing stories and journeys. And I feel like they've gotten to know me as well. And we just have this mutual respect for one another. And we've kind of trauma bonded in a way in the sometimes hell that is medical school. But then on the flip side, like I'm still able to kind of keep up on social media. I was obviously very plugged into the beginning of BB25. And then once Izzy and Heisem left and once Mimi left, I was like, okay, I'm going to watch for Felicia and Suri and AmeriCorey, but like I'm just not as invested right now. And then school picked up, so I had to take a step back. But anyway, like I was still able to kind of keep up, and I was still able to podcast with Jason and Rachel on one hand and Tiffany and Big D on the other hand. I was still able to travel for Lip Sync Battle. I'm not sure if you know what that is, but Azza organizes this like big reality TV lip sync battle, and I choreographed for that in New York at the beginning of the season, and then I choreographed for that again in LA at the end of the season. I've been able to travel a bunch. I've been able to go home and visit my family. I've been able to go to LA and take dance classes and film cool videos for that. I still keep up with my friends from home. So I don't know how I do it, but I just do. Again, I think the main key is not sleeping. But yeah, my name has
don't sleep.
Don't sleep. My name has kind of become synonymous with like, oh, if you have to fly across the country on like a Wednesday and then fly back and make it to class by Thursday morning, that's called like pulling a Hannah Chaddha. That's just what it's become synonymous with. Because I'll be like, okay, bye guys, I'm going to LA. They're like, oh my God, we have an exam tomorrow. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'll be back tomorrow morning.
Oh, I'll be back for it. Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes. Very... very funny. And then sometimes I'm like, I really live these very, very two dichotomous lives. And like at school, I never talk about Big Brother or social media stuff or anything like that. I like to keep that separate. Online, I don't really talk about school. So people are like, huh? Like we saw, I remember it was in January and Frankie Grande had a birthday party and his mom was there and some of his family was there and he's great. And he was like, oh, Hannah, I'm having this birthday party. I'm also performing like in New York. Do you want to come? And I was like, oh, I have an anatomy exam tomorrow, but sure. So I took the train from DC to New York, 3.5 hours right after class. Partied with him for his birthday until like 4:30 in the morning, did not sleep, hopped right back on a train, was back by 8 a.m., showered, changed, went to class, took my exam in the afternoon, got a 100%.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. I'm just all over the place.
Have you always been academically gifted?
Yes. Yeah.
So were you were one that like school kind of came easier to, and like, okay, so
yes, but I think that anything can be worked on.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I don't even think I was born with any like academic talents. It honestly just comes from a place of me genuinely being interested in what I'm learning.
Yeah.
And so if you like something, if you love something, you're gonna make sure you're good at it. You know,
right?
Just by like sheer virtue of repetition. So I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think my brain works any differently from anyone else's.
So I'm selfishly going to ask a question.
Yeah.
You were doing so much in 2021. How in the world did you apply for Big Brother with all of the stuff that
Okay.
you had going on?
My sister submitted the application for me. I think I have talked about the story before, but it's been so long. It was in January of 2021 was when I got sick with COVID, and I found out what Big Brother was through the Housewives because I'm like a notorious Bravo Housewives fan. I love them. I'm obsessed.
Interesting.
I love my Housewives slash like Vanderpump Rules, Summer House, etc. But Brandy Glanville and Candy Burris were both on Celebrity Big Brother seasons one
Mm-hmm.
and two, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I got introduced to the franchise. I finished both seasons in a matter of like a day and a half.
Oh
And I
yeah.
was like, wait, there must be more. I looked all over the internet for Celebrity Big Brother season three. I couldn't find it. I was like, wait, they took it off the internet. What happened? And then I came across the regular show and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably not going to be as good because these are strangers. I don't care about them. I don't see myself caring about them.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started from season 22. And I think had I started from a different season, I would have been like, put it away. The game is interesting, but like just the
Really?
treatment of minorities is too uncomfortable for me to watch. But I started with Davon's
Mm.
season. And so Davon and Bailey were a huge, huge, huge part of the
Mm.
reason why I kept watching. And
Yeah.
just from like Davon's speeches, I really wanted to understand more about the context of the game and the
Mm-hmm.
context of the show. So I watched the show in reverse order. I went from 22 all the way down to season 8. And then I wasn't able to do 1 through 7 because I had to leave to go film the show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I started watching with my sister, and my sister was like, she was in high school at the time. I believe she was she was like wrapping up her senior year, and she was like, well, Hannah, I have to submit this like film project for my film class. Can I film your application? Like, can I film your audition video and submit it to the casting agents, directors, whatever, but also like make that my final project? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm not going to hear back from them. I also didn't like, I wasn't on social media at the time.
Yeah.
And I just sort of figured by watching like season 21 and season 20 that they would want people who were well known, quote unquote, on social media. And I was only 20 at the time. So I was like, they're
Ah.
probably going to see the fact that I'm not even 21. Like I turned
Right.
21 a couple weeks before the show
Yeah.
starts. They're probably going to overlook me, whatever. She wrote my application for me. She filmed the video. She cut the video. I still haven't seen what my audition video looks like. But yeah, she sent it in. And then I heard back from one of the casting directors on March 5th, just asking for a little phone call that went a little something like this. She was just asking me
Yeah.
about my academic history mostly and about the fact that I was like almost a year and a half into my master's program at age 20. She was like, we find that very fascinating. So yeah, we did a lot of talking about that, and then it just kept going on and on and on. And I had like 3
Wow.
interviews per week. It was a crazy, crazy time.
Woo. Oh. Okay. Back to business. Sorry. I just
Yeah.
had to.
No,
Just
you're
had
fine.
to. I just had that. That was gonna burn in me if I didn't ask that one.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna be like, "There's that one piece missing from that chunk of time where you're taking the MCAT, doing grad classes, all that stuff." But
Yeah.
can you tell me about so my students can have a little more context? You just recently received your white coat. Can you tell me
Yes.
about what is a white coat? And then what was your experience kind of getting to that point of getting your white coat?
Oh my gosh, it was so special. I remember it like it was yesterday, August 4th of 2023. So your white coat is something that you receive when you enter the profession of medicine. It's just recognizing that you are now equipped to provide medical care in some capacity, even if you weren't a full-fledged doctor yet. So it's almost like your initiation. And for medical students, we wear short white coats. When you become a doctor, they extend the fabric by maybe like a foot, and you get your long white coat upon graduation from medical school. So that's like
Oh,
a little
wow.
fun fact if you didn't know. And we still wear our white coats I'd say on like a bi-weekly basis, anytime we
Okay.
have any sort of like professional session, anytime we have to go into clinic, anytime we do a training for like opioid overdose somewhere, for example, we have to wear a
Mm-hmm.
white coat. It also just like it kind of garners respect from other people. Like they see you in your white coat,
Yes.
they're like, oh, okay, she's
Oh,
a
yes.
professional. Like she has some sort of credibility. But receiving my white coat, I remember I put it on. I ordered a size that was way too big because I'm kind of delusional and think that Big D and I are the same size. And it's not even like a body dysmorphia thing. I just tell people that I'm much taller and I tell people that I'm much larger because
So then
I like
you
to take up space.
can't get that out of your
So
head. Yeah.
I fully ordered a coat that was just way too big on me. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I'm not actually 5'9". Anyway. I was like, ooh, should have ordered a smaller size. That was my initial thought because it was kind of like draping. But once I got past that, I was like, wow, this is everything that I have worked towards since I was 13 years old. Like 13-year-old me would be so
Wow.
happy that she's here, she's arrived, and she took a very like non-traditional path to get here. Like in between high school, which was uh, where I was when I was 13, and
Mm-hmm.
medical school. I finished high school, of course, went to college, got my master's, was able to pursue dancing, and was also able to like film a TV show and kind of do everything that comes along with that. And Big Brother was and is my favorite show, so that was definitely a dream of mine.
That's so awesome.
And so I was like, well, I have checked off all the boxes.
Yeah.
And yet there are still more boxes to check off. So I think it was just excitement and pride. And my family was there, and my childhood best friends, my college best friends. 13 of my castmates flew out. So that was just,
Oh.
I was like, oh my God, you guys, this love is overwhelming. Thank you. Thank you. They got to celebrate with my family. We all went out to dinner together. They stayed in DC for the weekend.
Wow.
Some people from BB24 came in, like Taylor, Jasmine,
Oh.
Amira,
Oh.
Monty. What else? I don't know. It was a time. Some alum called me throughout the day. Like Kaser sent me just the sweetest message slash called me when I was out celebrating. I was like, you're such an icon. The fact that you even
Yeah.
have my number is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing was so just wholesome. It was a very content experience. And then med school started, and I was like, oh my God, I should have gone to clown college. It's so overwhelming. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Okay, so I do want to. I've got a couple of questions that I absolutely have to ask. They are slightly Big Brother related, but I have one student who is a Big Brother superfan.
Hi, Ravi. My name's Hannah. First of all, you're adorable. But thank you so much for your love, and I send you just as much love back, and I can't wait to hear your questions and answer your questions. And that's awesome that you've been watching Big Brother for more than half your life. That's crazy, but that also means that when you go on Big Brother, let's see, you're 14 now. When you go on Big Brother season 41, wait, no. Wait, no, you only have to be 21 to go on Big Brother, not 30. What am I saying? When you go on season 32, depending on your birthday, 31, 32, I know you have what it takes to win. Because you're getting some inside scoop. No, I'm just kidding. But I can't wait to see you on my TV screen one day, and just thank you again for the love.
So his first question is, how did your experience in the Big Brother house affect your medical school life afterwards?
That's such a good question. I did not know what lied in store for me because, I'm the first woman in medicine, the first and the only women in medicine on Big Brother. So I didn't really feel like I had anyone to go to for advice. And even with the other doctors who have been on the show, Dr. Will, Andrew, who did season 12, he was first boot, I want to say, they went to medical school before they went on the show. So they were like established doctors.
Yeah.
Even with like Joseph and Michael and Xavier, they all went to law school. They graduated. They got their license before they went on the show. So I was like, how do I navigate going back to school? And now my life just looks totally different than it did prior to July of 2021. But I think what Big Brother taught me the most was about how much I value connection to other people. I think you guys, if you watched the show, maybe got to see a bit of that. Yes, we were playing this cutthroat game under these very weird dystopian circumstances. But at the root of that, like you could tell that some of those relationships were very real. The bond between myself and Tiffany and the other members of the cookout, the bond between myself and Derek X, myself and Claire, myself and Alyssa, like you really did get to see you got to see us develop just these very genuine, deep bonds and connections with each other. And for the first time in a long time, I like fully understood what exercising empathy means. And that doesn't mean I was apathetic before, but because it was a different way of using our brain and a different way of navigating without the distractions of the outside world. And I think because we did get so deep with each other in that bubble, and I was so young too, I was freshly 21. I think that was the first time where I was like, okay, this is what it means to enact compassion. This is what it means to lead with empathy. And I was like, okay, I know that I need to be in a profession where empathy and compassion are at the forefront in terms of the values of that profession. And so if anything, it just confirmed that I wanted to do medicine. And then living that like social media LA life where I was just running around and doing a whole bunch of nothing, I did not feel fulfilled at all. I was like, I need to get back to school. So that was just further confirmation that I belonged in medicine on this path. And like I said, I don't really talk about the Big Brother stuff, the LA stuff, any of that in school. But it does come up sometimes, not because of me, but because of other people. They get curious, or maybe like their friend knows who I am. Their parents watched me. Some of them even watched me. That's a little strange because it's almost like, okay, all of you guys got to have a clean slate with each other, but now I almost feel like I sort of have to live up to what you saw, or I have to perform, or like I can't be a disappointment because maybe you really liked me before you even met me. So that's been like a bit of a struggle, but for the most part, it's fine. It's like a non-factor here. Yeah, that was all over the place, but I hope that answered your question, Robbie.
That's so cool. You know, like I do want to say, Robbie does have a couple more questions that we're going to jump into in a second, but I do appreciate you talking about both here, because you are saying that like they don't like, you don't tend to cross them over, but I do appreciate you crossing them over here. I do. I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
It's always cool whenever I do, but I don't know. On a day-to-day, I keep them separate.
Well, I appreciate you meshing the two here a lot. So Robbie's next question is, how did your Big Brother experience affect your personal life outside of the house?
The biggest thing I think is just the social media of it all. Because I wasn't on social media before, so I've only ever experienced Instagram and Twitter as a public figure of sorts, if that's what you want to call me. And that's just, it's strange in the sense that I'm such a private person. Like people, I take precaution not to share too much about my personal life on the internet. And so the fact that anything that I do potentially carries so much weight and has such vast reach, it's almost like, why? It's a little challenging to wrap my head around, but I'd say that's probably the biggest change. But it's also cool in the sense that, like, if I have an idea or something that I want to implement, then I can just message someone on Instagram or message someone on Twitter and they see the account and there's like a bit of weight that's carried with being a public figure. And
Yeah.
so, like I've been able to accomplish stuff for my school through
Mm-hmm.
just having this like public online presence. So that's like the one perk, but it's just a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel exposed for sure.
I was that. Here we go. Back to me again. I'm trying. I swear, like with Felicia, it was so much easier for me to like pull myself like out of it. But I'm just so fascinated with everything you're saying. So I apologize. But
No,
was that
don't
hard
apologize.
being in the Big Brother house? Like with you being like more of a like private person, was that hard knowing that you were being broadcast?
No, not at all. It was the transition outside of the Big Brother house that was tough because you're in isolation for so long. You only
Yeah.
see your 15 roommates' faces for, in our case, I think it was 89 days. Let's just say 90 days, almost 100 days. And so you have to relearn things that you lost your ability to do when you were inside the house. So like learning how to order food at a restaurant, learning how to drive again, learning how to sing again. All of these just like random
Ooh, yeah.
small habits and actions that we take for granted that we weren't allowed to do in the Big Brother house, or just like didn't do. That was almost like an out of body experience. I felt like an infant again, learning to crawl or walk for the first time or talk for the first time. And then just something else about that is, what was I going to say? Something about the isolation of it all. You know, I can't remember. But in terms of being
okay.
in the Big Brother house itself, I'm not a problematic person. And so I wasn't really worried about like saying anything
Right,
that would
sure.
get me canceled. But I was like something that was always running through the back of my mind was like act in a way where if you were getting interviewed for medical school, if they pulled up, you know, this clip or they pulled up
Yeah.
footage from what you're doing right now and what you're saying right now, it wouldn't reflect poorly on you. So that's just something that I always tried to keep in mind. But it was easy being in that house. I was playing my favorite game with my friends. It was
Yeah.
fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And you had such a wonderful cast. Like, so that's
We really lucked out because season 24, a mess. Season 25, way too long. But season 23, even though we were very kumbaya, I will say there was just something different and electric and magnetic about us where we all had love for each other and our own ways of showing it. We all just like fit together so well.
yeah.
So yeah, it was a blessing. I don't think I would reflect on my Big Brother experience this fondly if I weren't on season 23. I think that is what
Oh
I
yeah.
was always meant to be on, and I don't think I was meant to win that. I think everything worked out the way it was supposed to.
Oh my gosh. Just looking at all the stuff that you're doing now, like it's just so clear that everything worked out the way it was supposed to. So
Exactly.
one more of my students' question is, what advice do you have for future medical school students?
Okay, well, I'm sorry if this advice is not what you're looking for. I apologize to the future doctors among us. I think a lot of medical students, residents, doctors will tell you like, study hard, find research opportunities, find a mentor, yada yada. You'll hear that from someone else, even if you don't hear that from me. One of the biggest things that I like to tell people who are also looking to pursue this path is don't lose yourself and your hobbies and your passions and your talents in your pursuit of medicine, because medicine is something that takes so much time and effort and energy and dedication, and it's easy to get lost in the sauce and just kind of give your all because that's what you've wanted your entire life. And I commend you for that. I don't fault you for that. But I think it's important to remember what makes you you outside of medicine and just to not lose sight of that. So if you're an artist, if you're a musician, if you really like clothes, I encourage you and I implore you to keep doing those things. And just don't forget. Let's see, what does the Lion King say? Remember who you are,
Remember who
Simba.
you
Yeah.
are. Yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Like, I absolutely loved your perspective. I'm not sure how much time you have left, but do you think you have like 10 minutes?
Let's see. Yes, I have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. So, would you be up for playing a quick game?
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
Okay. So, this game is a game called How Well Do High Schoolers Know?
Oh, no. Okay. How well do they know?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be asking you questions about being a about the medical field. And so I want you to first guess, how do you think high schoolers might have answered this question? And then what I would like for you to do is tell us what's the reality.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Okay. So first question. We have, on a scale of 1 to 10, how crucial do you think empathy is for a medical professional? What do you think the high schoolers might have said?
I think they maybe said like a 7 or 8.
All right. They said 10.
Okay. I so agree with that. I didn't know if maybe they would be like, oh, well, technique is really important and procedure is really important. Yes, I completely agree with that. Empathy should be the center of the profession. So, excellent job.
All right, here we go. Question number 2. How would you rate the significance of communication skills for a medical student on a scale of 1 to 10? What do you think they said?
I think they probably said 9.
They actually put this one as
10.
a 10
yes.
as well.
Oh my God. Yes. Physician-patient interactions are so important. Just effectively communicating with your patient and making them feel safe and just like trusting in you can get them to open up and can lead you to a diagnosis that you wouldn't have been able to glean just by like doing lab tests on them. So communication skills and listening skills, active listening skills are so important to like guiding the conversation and just like the diagnosis and the direction that you want.
Awesome. Thank you. Question number 3. How important do you think time management skills are for a medical student on a scale of 1 to 10?
Okay, they probably said 10. I think the reality is a little less.
So they said 9.
9, okay.
So what's this reality?
I mean, yeah, you have to know how to manage your time well, for sure. But Georgetown is structured a little differently where we don't have exams during the block. We just have exams at like the very end of the quarter. So technically, you can do whatever you want with your time up until then. Some people don't touch a single lecture until we're like, I don't know, how many weeks are our blocks? 8 weeks in. And then they'll just like lock themselves in their room and not come up for air over the course of like the 3 weeks that we have to take our final exams. So you can do that. And that just allows them a lot more free time during the block to do whatever it is that they want to do. I like to hold myself accountable, keep myself up to date with the material just because I do so much that I can't really afford to like forgo all my other responsibilities and just lock myself in a room for those last 3 weeks, nor do I want to. That sounds miserable. Yeah. So for me, time management skills are important, but for other people, not necessarily.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And number 4, how crucial is teamwork for a medical student, given the collaborative nature of healthcare? What do you think they put?
They probably said 10.
They actually said 8.
Interesting. Okay.
What's the reality?
I would actually rate it. How crucial is teamwork for a medical student? I would give that, I would actually give that a 10, just because
A
as a
10.
medical
Okay.
student, you aren't able to do anything without like the supervision and direction of your
Ah,
attending. And I mean, yes, you can be alone in a room with a patient, like doing their history and stuff, but you have to bring all
right.
that information back to the patient's clinical team. So,
Mm,
like, nothing falls on you specifically. It's definitely like a teamwork makes the dream work situation where everyone comes together to arrive on like the correct diagnosis, course of treatment, labs that you should order, prognosis for the patient. That's just a bunch of medical jargon for everyone on the team is necessary to provide the most just effective and excellent healthcare. Nurses, social workers, translators, doctors, medical students, residents, interns, etc.
I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to come with a vocab list for my students to be able to follow along.
No, no,
Like, oh
no,
gosh,
no. I'll stop. I'll stop using that.
good. You're good. Okay, and last question: how important is math in the medical field? What do you think they said?
They probably said 7.
They did. They said 7.
Oh,
What's the reality?
okay. Probably like we'll just go with 5. Physics is important in the context of physiology, just like knowing
Interesting.
how fluid flows throughout your body, knowing how the different organ systems work, and knowing how medications interact with your body. Physics is really important for all of that stuff. And I guess at like the root of physics is math. But in terms of like using arithmetic or algebra or calculus or any of that stuff, it's not important. I think
Interesting.
even a 5 is a little generous. Unless you go into
Wow.
something like anesthesia, unless you go into
Okay.
psychiatry, unless you go into like a really pharmacology heavy specialty. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm interested in anesthesia and psychiatry because of how much math there is. But if you want to be a surgeon, I don't think you're doing very much math.
Well, thank you so much for playing.
Oh,
So,
yay! What a fun
based
little
off of what
game.
you just said, are you a big math girl?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That's why I was cast on the show.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, I have to thank you so much for taking time out of your day in order to talk to me and answer my students' questions, and then bearing with me as I got excited and had to throw in my questions. But thank you so much for doing this. Like, I appreciate it so much.
Exactly. No, thank you so much, Mr. Harris, for being incredibly kind and sweet and just excited to talk to me. I was very excited to talk to you. I see, I'm so excited I can't even speak. No, but just thank you for allowing me to be here with you and for me to share a bit of my perspective with your students. So just thank you and have an amazing weekend.
You too.